Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar From Box Office to Income Statement in One Click. My name is Adriana Maya, and I am joined today by my colleagues Marvin Krosno and Steve Sargent. I will hand things off to Steve in just a moment, but before we begin, I need to cover a few housekeeping items. Just as a brief disclaimer, this presentation is for information only. This presentation contains our own opinions, and this presentation is proprietary. A few housekeeping items. At this point, you should be hearing audio. If you cannot hear me, then hopefully you are frantically turning up your speakers or switching to a different device. And hopefully this reminder has given you some time to troubleshoot things before we get started. At the end of the session, please give us your feedback and let us know how we did. The slides and recordings will be sent to you via email after this session. And finally, interact with us today by using the questions panel. Sarah Acosta will be monitoring the chat and answering your questions. If we don't get to your question today, someone from our team will follow up with you after the webinar. Also, please make sure you fill out the survey at the end of the webinar to be entered into our giveaway for a $25 Amazon gift card. Okay, it's now time to get started. I'll pass things off to our first presenter, Steve Sargent.
Thank you, Adriana, and again, welcome. As the title says, from box office to income statement with one click. And what we're really talking about is that one click replacing what we call spreadsheet spaghetti. That is the pain and anguish that comes to you in the form of a spreadsheet, trying to sort out what tickets go with what performance, what expenses go with what performance, what happens with season tickets and someone changing from one performance to another and that sort of thing. So for those of you on the line who may not be accountants, we're going to be talking about some of the things that your accountants have to deal with and why they're not able, typically speaking, to give you the information you're looking for immediately after a performance or even after the month end. Okay. So a typical month end, let's see if any of these situations resonate with you. It's the 12th and we're still working on trying to close the month. And that's because we have a spreadsheet that has about 47 tabs. Now that may be a little bit exaggerated, but maybe not by much. Your accountants have to figure out, again, what revenue goes where and what revenue needs to be recognized and what revenue does not need to be recognized. We'll talk about that in just a moment. And part of the scary thing is that might even keep you up at night is there's probably only one person in the organization that really knows how that workbook works. And we just hope they don't go on vacation or finally quit and give up. Oh my goodness. Hello, I'm your auditor and I'm here to help. Well, because everything is coming from a spreadsheet, there really is no good audit trail. So the auditors spend all kinds of time, and more importantly, perhaps, your accountants have to pull an all-nighter trying to document exactly how they came up with the numbers that they did to make the auditors happy. So we'll talk about what that looks like after a conversion to Accountingware and to our product. What it looks like anyway, and why auditors love the product. Of course, without ticketing, you don't have a life, you don't have an organization. So ticketing is certainly the lifeblood of the organization. But in most accounting departments, they're also the biggest source of manual work, which also involves anytime there's manual work, you're talking about the risk of error and of course reporting delay. So for those of you who are executives in the organization or perhaps on the board, all you want to know is how did we do with a particular performance? Why can't I just get that? And I don't even care about the expenses. I just want to know about the revenue. Well, it's not all that easy. So as a result, you lose days, both in terms of your people trying to reconcile their spreadsheets and the ticketing information that they get from your ticketing platform, and then trying to sort out what goes where. Also, perhaps even more importantly than the time that it takes to pay those people to do that, you're waiting for very valuable information that helps you make decisions going forward. Because it's manual and so laborious, it is a common point of failure and therefore receives a lot of scrutiny from auditors. At the end of the day, you want, of course, a performance level profit and loss. It's just so stinking painful to come up with. So why is that? Well, let's first talk about getting information from your ticketing system. Now, we have customers using products like Tessitura, Patron Manager, eTix, Audience View, and Spectrix. We'll talk about in just a bit. On the other side, you have your book of record, your ERP, your general ledger, accounts payable, payroll, your P&L reporting system, and your 990 reporting. So how does information get from one to the other? Well, wouldn't it be nice if it was one click, but it's just not. What you have in between is this humongous spreadsheet that someone is having to go through and spend hours and hours and hours trying to look it up. They start with an export of data from the ticketing system. If they're really, really good and really, really smart, they can maybe do some automation in the spreadsheet itself using VLOOKUPs and other tricks and tips of that kind of system. And in the end, they come up with manual journal entries, and then finally, they can give you the information that you're looking for. And as we discussed, there's no real audit trail for an auditor or anyone else to really follow about where that data came from. So if they give you a number and it just doesn't seem quite right, you just know we sold more tickets than that, or you just know we spent more than that. Well, where did that data come from? Oh my goodness, let's go back to our spreadsheet and try to figure that out. And oh, by the way, we've been talking primarily about revenue, but the same thing goes for direct expenses. If you want a true profit and loss, you also need to track expenses that are directly attributable to those performances as well. So what are we talking about here? Well, we've pretty well covered what the current system probably is for virtually all of you, or most of you. So days of work, there's no audit trail, and you just pray that that one person that understands it all doesn't take a vacation. And it starts with a manual export and a lot of work. So what we're talking about is called API integration, and that's just a technical term which means one program talking to another. So each program on each side has a program that's designed to interact with some other system, and so the two can talk directly. Well, what that means is literally in a click, within a minute or two, you can get the data that you want into your general ledger, fully auditable, and anyone can run it. Even me, even a dumb sales guy can click on the right button to get the data into your general ledger, much less a professional accountant. What's more, as you're going to see here in the next few minutes, and by the way, we are going to spend the majority of our hour together in the software. I'm going to hush in just a moment and turn it over to Marvin to show you some of these things live. But one of the things that the auditors love is, well, where did this number come from? Click, there you go. Now we've drilled down to the invoice or to the ticketing data or wherever that came from, and I can get right to it. So auditors love it, and they'll get out of your hair sooner than later. One of the nuances that's peculiar to organizations like yours are revenue recognition. So here's what that looks like. We've got 3 performances coming out between now and the end of the season: Beethoven's Fifth, Scheherazade, and Tchaikovsky's 1812. So we've been selling tickets for months and months and months, but until the performances actually take place, and each one of these, of course, Beethoven's Fifth may be performed 3 or 4 or 5 times, we don't recognize the revenue until, you might say, the product is actually delivered. Until then, it's called deferred revenue. So maybe it's actually a liability. Well, I need to figure out again how much of that revenue is directly attributable to that specific performance, and then move that amount from deferred revenue to actual revenue. Well, okay, that sounds okay, but what about season tickets? How do you allocate those across all those performances? What if I didn't purchase season tickets? I just bought 2 or 3 performances out of the 5 that you did during the season. What about a cancellation or exchange? I'm not going on Friday night, I'm going on Saturday night instead. And oh my goodness, it's so complicated. And we've just added 3 or 4 more tabs to your spreadsheet. All you want to know is, how did our Mozart concert do? Now, you may be talking about revenue, but what you'd really like to know is, what's the bottom line? What did we make any money? Did we lose any money after we paid all the performers and all the ticket selling people and all the bills? Well, in moments, we can answer that by performance, by production, by season, however you want to see it. Now, what you're looking at on the right, you might be grateful to get that, as if you can get it quickly, but we can do just about any kind of report you can imagine. In fact, our claim is, if it's something you can create manually in Excel, if the data is coming from your general ledger, we can automate it. And we'll show you what that looks like in coming minutes. So without further ado, Marvin, would you like to take over and show some of this in action?
Sure, Steve. Thank you so much. And we will now go into the software and look at the actual software. We have at AccountingWare, we have developed 3 different ticketing systems and interfaces to Tessitura, to Patron Manager, and to eTix. Well, I'm going to spend most of the time today with a new interface that we have, and that is the Patron Manager interface. With all 3 of those, what we're doing as we go to the vendor's API, to the, in this case, Patron Manager API, we are bringing the integrations in through the accounts receivable invoice. Now, that doesn't mean that we have an accounts receivable, it does not mean that we have a outstanding receivable, but what we do have is cash sales, and we're converting those in the accounts receivable invoice system to a cash sale as we import. So what I want to do first is just run the integration so you can see the integration and see what you get into your accounting system. So there's a couple of days already out here, but I'm going to go into the automation process and run the Patron Manager import. So when I do that, I have a screen that comes up and I have several choices to make. Well, one is, what is the date range of the transactions that you want to bring from Patron Manager into the accounting software? I'm going to go here and I'm going to do April the 2nd of this year, and just that one day, April 2nd. Now, typically that is all that you will provide, but just for a sample here of things that you can do, I've got some options. So for example, I could summarize by GL code an event, or I could just summarize by GL code, or I could bring every single transaction from Patron Manager into the accounting system. And these are just 3 of the choices. Different organizations will want different choices. And although you would not be expected to select this, we don't want this selection in a live environment. You do it one way and one way only, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention by having that option in our demo today. We're going to take summarize by GL code and event, and we're also going to say we want to recognize revenue. Now, I can't imagine why anyone would not want to recognize revenue, but in my sample here, I was able, or am able, to turn it off. So once we do that, in just a few seconds here, we will bring that one day, April the 2nd, into the accounting system. And the screen will show you the progress as it's going. So always when you're waiting on something like this, it found 948 transactions on April 2nd to bring in for a total of $42,000. There are these are the typical. There's credit card fees, and as it brings them in, you saw them come in upstairs here. That's transaction number 5 and transaction number 6. It will log a lot of the things that it's done. And as soon as it's finished, I will show you what has happened. So it has logged everything. It's brought everything in. And so I will finish this up. Now it's basically broken down into donations and ticket sales. You can break it down into as fine grained as you want, but in this particular data set, let's look at the donations. So for donations, you'll notice that there are a few transactions here. Everything is a cash sale, so there's really nothing to recognize future revenues, which you'll see in a few minutes is in this extra GL. There are certain receipts that have been receipted, and so you can see those here. And also you'll notice that there's a note here, and that note that's available to you shows you the complete transaction. It shows you everything that you saw on the screen. So if this is running in the background or through a scheduled task or something like that, you can always go in and see what happened during the run. But think about that. We've just brought in a whole day's worth of transactions in just a few seconds. Let's go back and look at the invoice, and let's look at the ticket sales. If we look at the ticket sales, you'll notice that there are a lot of transactions here that are brought in. There are various kinds of receipts, from credit cards to checks and pre-sales and gift certificates and things like that. But the important thing is that Steve just mentioned and that is revenue recognition. So you can go to the extra GL tab here, and you can see all of the postings that have been made on your behalf to defer that revenue and to recognize that revenue on the date of the performance. So here are a lot of performance dates out here, and on the date of the performance, we took this deferred income and placed it into revenues for the subscription to the Pops concert or whatever that is. So we see that that we have that capability. Again, we see the various types of receipts, from credit card to pre-sales to checks to gift certificates and things like that. Okay, so now we have a few questions that we might want to answer, and that is on this particular invoice that we just brought in for the ticket sales, maybe we want to know where those, remember Steve talked extensively about audit trails. Well, look at this. This is a list of every single, for Patron Manager, every single transaction has a unique ID. And that's what we're looking at here. There are 205 unique transactions that were coalesced together and put into this one posting that ended up in your AR invoices and ended up in your accounting system. So that is a audit trail. You can tell exactly where those transactions came from. And also we log up here in our setup system. We also log in custom data imported transactions. This lists all of the transactions from Patron Manager by unique ID, and it tells you exactly which ticket those came in on. So we have a two-way correspondence here. We list all the transactions and where they came in. Over on the invoice itself, we list all of the transactions here. There's 3 here for the non-ticket sales, and if we look at the ticket sales, there are 205 of those. So there's a complete audit trail. One more thing that I want to show you is that in the Patron Manager system, we have the check that we can't post twice. So we just posted April the 2nd. So if we exit this and let's go back into the bot and let's pull in April the 2nd and April the 3rd. So I'm going to pull in 2 days of transactions, 0402 through 0403 of this year. And so we'll leave all of the import options the same as they were a few minutes ago. And so as this goes out and tries to read the second and the third both, you'll find out that it says, I've already imported the transactions for the second. I can't do that again, so it will skip those. There's 1,052 total transactions between the second and the third, but we've already imported 205 of those. There's only 37 new on the third to import. So that shows you that we've thought seriously about how this works so that you can't double up your transactions and things like that. And so as we finish this off, again, we can check those transactions that were imported. These are all on the third. We can look at the various receipts. We can look at the these are the 35 transactions with their unique ID from Patron Manager that came in. So that illustrates a lot of the Patron Manager integration. We also have integration not only with Patron Manager, but Tessitura. Let me look and see if there's anything else that I wanted to point out. Okay, we have a duplicate check. I believe I did point this out, but in the log and the notes, there's a log here, and this log will tell you exactly what happened. There's a duplicate guard that eliminated 206 of those, as we just saw. So the person who's running this can see what happened in each case. Also, just to point out that when these transactions come in, they're fully editable. So I'm going to go back into the accounts receivable invoices, and I'm going to look at these ticket sales that came in on the third. I'm going to look at the extra GL, and maybe for some reason, I can't imagine why you would want to do this, but maybe someone decided that this wasn't correct, and now this was $630 instead of $638. So just to make it balanced, I'll change both the revenue and the deferred revenue, and I will save that. Well, even though this transaction can be edited after it's imported from Patron Manager, I don't think that's a good idea. But if somebody edited it, I want to note that we record every change. So, for example, when this first came in, it was a new transaction. And when I just edited it just now, I changed the value from $630 to $638. So if someone does change it, they can't hide. It's all recorded. So you know exactly who changed it. Marvin Crossno at a particular date. So there's a date stamp here so that you can tell exactly who changed something, maybe when they should not have changed it. So once that you've determined that it's okay, then we go through a posting process. We call it a merge process. And as soon as it's merged, it's no longer capable of being edited. Now, I'm not going to physically merge this because this is data that we don't want to destroy in the future. But just wanted to point that out. So this is the Patron Manager integration. I'm going to show you briefly something involved with the Tessitura integration. So let's put this away. Let me go to a different data set. I'm going to a different data set and a different system here. And again, we do the Tessitura integration very similar to what we just showed in the Patron Manager integration. When we integrate with Tessitura, we bring, just like in Patron Manager, we bring it in as an invoice. So here we have a magic button at the top, which is a Tessitura magic button. But in Tessitura, the unique ID is something called a posting number. And those of you who are running Tessitura, you recognize that posting numbers, as you complete your transactions, you wrap them all together, put a lot of transactions into the same bucket, and that is called a posting number. In this particular case, we've imported up through posting number 5038. So as I go into Tessitura, this is the interface to the Tessitura API. And I say I want to start with posting number 5039, and I'm going to go to posting number 5045, let's say. So I'll take 6 posting numbers. Most people do a posting number per day, but you can do multiple posting numbers in a single day. But it is the unit of operation that's all balanced from Tessitura. Now, one of the things in Tessitura, if you try to duplicate, it will loudly tell you you're duplicating. So some people want to turn on this silently skip duplicates. And you can also choose not to go into a editable form when you get it into Activity HD. You can merge it immediately, so no one can do what I just did in the Patron Manager integration and make some changes. I don't think you should be making changes, but sometimes that is possible. So we can choose to merge immediately if we want to. I'll uncheck those just for the sake of demonstration here. I'll say next, and what happens is it goes out and logs into the Tessitura API site. It will bring in those posting numbers that we just asked for. It does take a couple of minutes to bring all of those in. But think about how much time this saves. How many hours do you spend with your spreadsheet spaghetti, as Steve pointed out, to bring those transactions in from either Tessitura or Patron Manager or eTix or things that we have. So as we look at these are the transactions that it just brought in. This is one transaction here for the 5039 posting number, 5043 posting number, 5054, 5045, and we get exactly the same or very similar to the same information that we got with the Patron Manager. Here are all your cash transactions. The cash transactions generated these sales transactions. We paid for them with these cash transactions, and the extra GL does your deferred revenues as requested or required for the ticket sales. Of course, all of the various charges, the donations, and things like that are not represented here in the ticket sales with the revenue recognition. Okay, and again, there are change logs here, just like there were in the Patron Manager, and you have your receipts in detail. Okay, Steve, so now we've shown our audience that we have integrations, and we've exhibited those integrations between for Patron Manager and Tessitura. We also have one for eTix, and as Steve has pointed out, there are others that we can develop. All this is developed with something we call our automation, and that automation is such that if this particular integration doesn't work for your company, if you want to do something a little different, then we can certainly do that because we control everything. We control all the prompts and everything that happens in your particular integration. And I want to reiterate one more time that all of this can be run in the background with like a task scheduler. So it happens in the middle of the night, and you could come in the next day and see everything that it brought in overnight with the sales from yesterday or the sales from the past week. Okay, Steve, take it back over, and we'll come back in a few minutes and look at more of the Activity HD system outside of the integrations with the ticketing system.
Thank you, Marvin. So just imagine the day after a performance, you come in, all the data's in your GL, and you can answer that question. How did we do? How did we do on that performance? So what we're talking about here is more than just integration with a ticketing platform. This is a full ERP, a full accounting system. So we're going to show you, for example, how we can fulfill that claim that I made earlier, that if you can imagine it or produce it manually in Excel, we can automate it for you and do so in such a way that you can drill down to the individual transactions, similar to what Marvin was showing you, but from the actual financial itself. Not only that, but we can turn those financials into graphical kinds of reporting. Maybe I can compare one performance to another, one year to another, show the breakdown of our revenue and expenses by ticket type or expense type and so forth. A change log we talked about. Budgeting. How about having a tool that shows you last year's actual, last year's budget, the variance, and a nice environment in which to develop those budgets. I know that's everyone's favorite time of year, but we make it easier. And once you have developed those budgets, you're probably doing it externally in a spreadsheet today. And much like we talked about earlier, wouldn't it be nice if it could find its way into the GL without your having to put it in there manually? The answer is, of course, yes. There's lots of other kinds of automation besides what we just saw, bringing in information from your ticketing platform. There are many other kinds of automations we can do. One that comes to mind immediately, for example, is the ability to automatically reconcile your bank account. We take a file from your bank, we run it through the system, and we say you're in balance or you're not in balance, or here are the exceptions that you need to look at. AP automation. Marvin is going to show you in just a moment. No more manual entry of AP invoices. What if you just scan those and the data winds up in the right place? My goodness, how much time would that save? So again, one system, one audit trail, one source of truth, and this is a full ERP. Now, we're not going to have time to look at most of this, of course, but besides general ledger and AP that we've talked about, and a little bit about AR, there's also bank reconciliation, fixed assets, and payroll. Not all of our customers have or need all of those. They might use an external payroll service, for example, and we can bring that data in too, but we do offer a full system. So Marvin, let's show them some of these things that we talked about. We're not hearing you. I don't know if you're talking or on mute.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Steve, for all that introduction that I messed up by not re-engaging. So here is a spreadsheet that we have for the Opera Texas company that we were just in, that we brought in the Tessitura data for. So there are two performances, or two productions, one of Rigoletto and one of Detoshi Stadt. But Rigoletto, which is in the past, has various performances. So if I have a spreadsheet here, we've designed this spreadsheet. So these are each one of the four performances of this production of Rigoletto. The total for the production is here on the left. Each performance is here. The same thing is available with Detoshi Stadt, but that hasn't occurred yet. So we're only having revenues and not specific expenses that have been spread to the expense columns. So this is just a one, for example, we can produce a spreadsheet. And as Steve said a few minutes ago, our claim is that if you can imagine a spreadsheet that you want to build and the information is coming out of your Activity HD general ledger, you can produce it. Now, there's something very unique about these spreadsheets, and that is it is not a spreadsheet that has been exported, but this spreadsheet is something that you designed inside of Excel. And for every number on this spreadsheet, you can click on that number and drill down to the underlying detail. So that $293,000 is made up of these 8 postings of these amounts right here. Those are all your credits. These are the debits. All of that came from, guess what? Tessitura, because these are the debits are like exchanges or refunds or things like that. These are your sales, but everything here came from Tessitura. And we can see that data, and we can drill down on that data and go all the way back to the invoices that are recorded that came in from Tessitura. And that customer in this case is Tessitura. So the net result is, with our integrations to the ticketing systems, we can go all the way from revenues to financial statements in just a few clicks. So I want to talk a little bit more about financial statements and how we build these financial statements. Before I do so, I want to show you some of the variations that we can have in financial statements. So let me pull up another system here. And this is just trying to prove if you can dream it, you can build it. So here's a balance sheet. This balance sheet is a nice balance sheet. It has assets on the left and liabilities and equity on the right. Here is a P&L with departmental charts, because charting is a native capability of Excel. Here's an income statement by month. Here is a trailing 4 years. Here is a cash flow statement. Here is a multiple company where we're having multiple companies that are all pulled together into a consolidated statement. And here is a boardroom report with a balance sheet on the left, an income statement on the right. We have a graph in the middle, and we have a picture of our company headquarters at the top. So again, our ability to use Excel not only for both designing your financial and reporting your financial, and if you can dream it, you can build it. Now, this is much different than the typical one of our typical competitors, who actually builds your spreadsheet in their own spreadsheet builder program and then export to Excel, because every one of these has the ability to drill down on every single number here. And even though they can do that, you don't have your direct tie back to your database. Okay, so let's put this away and let's go build a simple spreadsheet. Let me put this away if I can. I need to get back to my, let's do it this way. Okay, so let's go back into our accounting system. So let's go into one of these companies here. Let's use this company down here at the bottom. And I want to go into the general ledger system. I want to go into financial designs, and I want to build a spreadsheet. I want to build one of these spreadsheets so that you can see how easy it is to do. So I'm going to do a new one. So I'm going to call this the webinar spreadsheet. I will go into Excel. And once I get into Excel here, I'm going to use some wizards to build a financial for period 7 rather, of 2025. So we'll go in here. We'll go to a layout wizard. We'll build an income statement. Now I'm going to do this very rapidly. When we do a demo for you, a full demo, we'll do this much more concisely, but I'm going to do a summary income statement here. And this is just going to have 5 rows on a summary income statement. Now this is fully populated. There are some areas at the top and to the left that we can explain in a full demo, but this already is operational. So I can drill down on these non-personnel expenses, and I can look at a particular non-personnel expenses. Let's say this $7,000 for rent. I can click on that. It will bring up so I can bring up the invoice. I can open that invoice and look at the attachment on that invoice, and here is the actual bill from the vendor. So what have I done? I've built a spreadsheet in Excel very quickly with just a very simple one. I've drilled down to that $141 to specific information available inside the accounting system and even to a picture of the invoices in the accounting system. So that's one level of we can build Excel financials that are drill downable to the detail. We also have other reporting capabilities, and those other reporting capabilities could be something like a trial balance. Well, with the trial balance, we call those financial views. Let's look at a trial balance, and let's look at that same point in time, April of 2025. We can look at that. See, I think that was, January of 2024, I believe it was 2024. And we can, or was it 2025? It doesn't make any difference, but I will go down here into my expense account area, look up the account. Let me look up a specific account. The account that I want to look up is 54100. And so that's that office rent. Here's that $7,000 that we were just looking at in our financial statement that we built. I can double click on that $7,000 in a trial balance. I can click on that $7,000 in a trial balance. I can see that. And again, just like in a spreadsheet, I can drill back all the way to the attachment and the bill in the attachment. So just like I was able to do this in an Excel spreadsheet, I can also do it in a trial balance with exactly the same concepts, exactly the same drill down capabilities, and so forth. And just to sort of bring this full circle and look at graphical reporting, let's go up here and let's look at some of our graphs. So here is a graphical reporting. Here's a CEO view of that same information that I was just looking at, that same account, non-personnel expense that we looked at in the financial statement, in the Excel financial statement. One of the things that is, this is the administrative expense graphically presented. And here is that same $7,663 that I see from a financial, and I can drill down from here and go back to the AP invoice just like I did from a spreadsheet or from the trial balance. So you can present your data to different constituents in different forms. Maybe somebody is very graphically oriented, so they want to see the data from a graph. Other people are very detail oriented, like your CFO that want to see a trial balance, or maybe your board of directors wants to see a financial design in Excel. We can look at exactly the same data in many different ways and present that data. Okay, so we said earlier, Steve said that budgeting is something that everybody wants to do, but it's difficult to do. It's difficult to have the ability to do it. But remember, one of our statements was that if you can imagine a financial, or if you can imagine a spreadsheet that you want to build in Excel, you can build it with Activity HD. And so one of those financial designs that I could imagine, or you could imagine, is a budget workbook. So what we've done here is we've built a budget workbook. Now this workbook is very extensive. It is very complex, but sometimes budgeting requires complex data. But this particular workbook, and I should have closed this down a little bit before this is a huge workbook, so I'm going to close it down so we can see just the part that I want to look at. I think this should do it here. Okay, so what we've got here is a huge workbook. We've got several prior years of data for each one of our chart of accounts. So for example, you know, if we look at TV advertising, which is the account 52 010, we can look at that TV advertising. We are currently in the year 2008. We can look at that for, or 2025, I mean. We can look at that by month in 2022. So here's the TV advertising for 2022. We can look at the same thing for 2023. So this is the 2023 things that we spent for TV advertising. Another thing we can do is we can actually chart this. If graphical presentation looks better, we can take this one account and look at the graphs like a bar chart here. So that graph, and I don't have enough real estate here to show everything I want to show. The graph is actually off the screen here, over here. I can bring it back over here. Maybe I can make this a little smaller so we can see it. So now this shows the TV advertising for the last 3 years. And so I could sort of say, okay, well, this year we spent $6,000. This year we spent $4,000. Those dotted lines represent the amount we spent each year on the average by month, $2,000. So I might want to say that for that TV advertising, that I might want to spend $47,000 this year for TV advertising, where my actual in 2023 was $50,000. Or I could say I want to spend $35,000 this year. It's not $335,000. But once you get your budget built by looking at all the historical, by looking at maybe some linear regression, some averages, some suggested amounts, you can bring all the kinds of facilities together and decide what your budgets are going to be. And once those budgets are determined, then you can hit a single button here and post that into the budget area in Activity HD. So we can build spreadsheets. Remember, if you can imagine it, you can build it. We can build spreadsheets. And by the way, every one of these numbers is drill downable to the underlying detail. So we can go back and look at the individual detail in case there's some anomaly of a huge charge here that's not it's not very recognizable. You can go back and see the detail. So we can build spreadsheets that will assist you in doing your budgeting, and they can be as complicated or as simple as you want them. So we've shown how to use Excel for financials. We've shown how to use trial balances and graphical reporting. We've shown how to use budgets. Let's talk just a minute about automation. You've seen automation already because you saw it in the Tessitura integration, and you saw it also in the Patron Manager integration. But let's look at a different aspect of automation that's maybe a little different. So let's go up here to another company, MRC Company. Let's go to accounts payable and let's put in a new invoice. So we're going to put in a new invoice to our insurance vendor, Valera. And so this invoice number will be 123. It says of today's date for an amount of $50,000. And so that accounts payable $50,000 is going to be charged out to insurance. Now, you probably already know I don't want to charge $50,000 out on today's date for the next year, because this insurance policy is insurance for 07-10. Let's put 07-10/2026 through 07/09/2027. So it's for a year there, and I will save that. But we don't want to expense all that as of today's date. We want to put that into, just like we did revenues in Tessitura and Patron Manager, which are unearned revenues, we have prepaid expenses. So we want to use our extra GL and AP here to record prepaid expenses. So we have automation to do that. So we can go up here and we can say, I want to run my prepaid expense automation. I want to start this on 07-10 of this year, of 07-10 of 2026 through 07-09 of 2027. I want to spread this on a monthly basis. My prepaid expense account is, I'll look it up here. Here's my prepaid expense account. And so what this does is it populates the extra GL with all of my prepaid expenses, and it does it in an automated situation so that the first month I'm getting about 2/3 of the expense. It's prorating the first and the last month and evenly distributing the rest of it. Now you could do this. You could do this with a journal entry posting, but that's boring. That's something that a computer should do for you. And so with our automation, we can distribute and prorate this over the next year in a reasonable fashion very quickly and take out the drudgery that normally goes with something like this in accounting. Okay, and the other thing that Steve listed in his list of things to show was AP automation. Was the change logs. We've already seen the change log that I showed you originally when I changed the amount of an import from Patron Manager. But every single change that's made anywhere in the system always has a change log. So when you build that invoice, like this particular, there's a change log tab down here. This invoice was a new invoice with all of the new information that's in that invoice. And when I made that edit to add the extra GL information, that was logged also. So every change that's made to any transaction, to any master file, to anything in Activity HD is logged. So as I think Ronald Reagan once said, you can run, but you can't hide. So we know who changed it, the date, timestamp that changed it, so that you don't have to worry about audits in your system. That got changed by somebody somewhere? No, we know exactly who changed it and when they changed it for all of the data elements within Activity HD. Okay, Steve, so I think I've covered all the items that you wanted me to cover, including Excel financial, graphical reporting, budgeting, automation, change logs. So I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Marvin. Just most of you seem to have found our Q&A section of the webinar interface. If yours isn't showing up there on the right for some reason, at least on my screen, there's a solid white icon at the top with a question mark in the middle. Click on that and you'll see a panel pop up where you can submit a question. Typically you would type those in at the bottom. So just a reminder, we'll also be following up with you as Adriana will explain in just a moment. So wrapping up here. Come on now. Here's just one case study among many, or one example, if you will. Here's Opera Colorado with an annual budget of $5.4 million, founded in '81. They use Tessitura. And as a result of that, some of the things that they talked about when we interviewed them was if there's some revenue discrepancy when we reschedule a production. Now, I don't know how often that happens, but the point is something changed and we need to get information in the right place. We need to recognize the revenue at the right time, etc. They said that's a 15-minute process now. So in your spreadsheet spaghetti world, just imagine what kind of chaos that might create. With one click, we can assign deferred revenue accounts by ticket type. Marvin gave you a flavor of what that looked like once it came over. Drill down for the production manager so that that person doesn't have to call accounting to figure out has this invoice come in yet? Is that reflected in this number? Or this number doesn't seem right. What went into that number? That person can see for themselves using that drill down. Their CFO says about how much he loves the system. He initially started talking to us because we had the integration with Tessitura that he knew would make the life of his organization easier. And then he found out there was so much more. In fact, if you had a couple more hours to spend, we could talk about other topics such as managing restricted funds, grant tracking and reporting, another bane of our existence, if you will. You know, how did we spend the money that you donated, and did we spend it where you wanted it spent? Reporting on the 990 and things like that. There is so much more that is unique to performing arts organizations that we can accommodate. Just a couple of words and we'll wrap up here. As far as our history, we've actually been in business for 45 years, and all that time in accounting software. Yes, it has changed a bit in 45 years, but some of our customers or one of our specialties is nonprofit performing arts, including theaters and opera houses, auditoriums, symphony orchestras. And where we got our start was in state fairs. The state fairs of California, to be specific, use our product in much the same fashion that you've seen today. We've talked a bit too about Tessitura and Patron Manager and eTix that we currently have integrations to live and in production, or one of them I guess is about to be in production. Others are planned or to be developed. And if you use something else besides any of these 5, that isn't the end of the conversation. Let's talk. We can figure out a way to make that happen for you too. Lastly, this product is cloud hosted, meaning you don't have to hire someone, or you don't have to acquire hardware. You don't have to have an IT manager to install this and install updates and that kind of thing, or do the backup. That's all part of the service. And yes, we do have support. It's first-class support, all 100% delivered by a US team. So at the end of the day, you give days back to your team. You hopefully keep those accountants working for you because they're not so frustrated with their spreadsheet spaghetti. You save money because you're not having to pay them for days and days and days of time dealing with that spaghetti. And most importantly, you get the information that you're wanting literally immediately upon a click. You make your auditors happy, and as a result, maybe you spend less on your audit, but certainly spend less of your time answering very difficult to answer questions about how your spaghetti works, because it's all there. They can drill down and see for themselves, as Marvin showed you. Your board of directors and your other management get the answers that they need in minutes. So as a result, you're spending less time on the books, more time on the mission. Wouldn't that be nice? And we'd really like to talk, we've talked in general about things that we've seen in the industry here, but we'd like to talk to you specifically about your unique challenges and requirements in what we call a discovery call. Following that discovery call, we can develop and then deliver for you a customized demonstration to address the areas of concern and of interest to you. Again, we'll be following up with you as we'll talk in a moment. I'm going to turn it now over back to Adriana, who will bring this to a close.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you all for joining us today. As a reminder, we'll be sending out the recording and slides following this session so you can share it with others. And then if you have questions and would like to learn more, you can reach us at info@accountingware.com. Before you go, don't forget to complete the survey that will pop up as you leave the webinar. By filling it out, you'll be entered for a chance to win an Amazon $25 gift card. And we hope you found this session informative and helpful, and we really appreciate your interest in learning more. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.